Hello everyone, we'll be talking about pre-writing and drafting a narrative with dialogue. Objectives are write dialogue in a narrative by planning, revising, editing, rewriting, or trying a new approach. Second, demonstrate focused ideas in writing by using dialogues. So let's begin by defining what a dialogue is. So dialogue is the conversation between two or more characters in a story. So basically dialogue would be the words that characters say to each other. So they make the story more interesting and more realistic in that, of course, in real life situations, we do tend to communicate with other people. So same with characters in a story. Now, when we write dialogues, we have to be familiar with its different parts and purposes. First, dialogues reveal a character's thoughts and feelings. Second, a dialogue sounds the way people talk to each other in real life. So we will be using words that we typically use in a normal communication situation. Next, dialogue makes a story more lifelike and interesting. And last, it shows rather than just tells what is happening in the story. For the last point, of course, we do not want the author speaking on behalf of the characters the entire time in the story. So we actually need the characters interacting with each other so that the plot of the story could progress. So we have in here an example of a dialogue taken from the story Off and Running. So Off and Running is basically a story about two fifth graders running for the position of president in their school student council. So both of them were tasked to deliver speeches in front of their fifth grade classmates and the rest of the school. So this is an example of the dialogue in one of the speeches delivered by the main character, Miata. "Good morning," Miata said. "It's almost afternoon," Carlos yelled. Miata looked at the clock on the wall and then at Carlos. She decided to ignore him. She continued with a bright chime in her voice. "I'm seeking your votes next Tuesday. I want to be your president." "President of the United States?" Carlos yelled through the funnel of his hands. Now, how do we write a dialogue? Let's dissect the anatomy of a dialogue. Recall your lessons about direct speeches and using quotation marks. So when we write dialogues, we have to enclose the exact words that the character said using the open and close quotation marks. And also we have to use the comma so that we can separate the words that the character said from the name of the character. But then for other occasions or for other types of dialogues, we have to use different punctuation marks like the question mark if the character is asking something, or the exclamation point if, for example, the character is delivering the dialogue with very strong emotions. Don't forget to put in verbs like said, yelled, and continued with a bright chime in her voice so that your readers could imagine how the dialogue is delivered by your characters. Now let's go to pre-writing a narrative with dialogue. So you would remember that we have 5 steps in the process writing approach, and we would focus on the first step for now. So in this stage, you plan what you are going to write. You choose a topic, identify your audience and purpose, brainstorm ideas, and organize information. And don't forget that in the details of your story or your narrative, you have to include dialogue. So this is our graphic organizer for planning a narrative paragraph with dialogue. Our prompt would be write a narrative or a story. It can be a fictional narrative or a personal narrative, including dialogue in which two characters provoke a reaction in each other. So decide on the title or the topic. You can change it any time you want. Just make sure that you know what you're going to write about. So we have events and details that we need to identify, and just a simple flow chart so we would know the beginning, the middle, and the end of our narrative. So let's say that we have planned to write the narrative Meeting of the Plushies. So plushies are stuffed toys. Now, our main character would be Isaac, and Isaac is with his little sister Vivian. So the first event is this. Isaac's little sister was playing in his room with her stuffed animals. So include in the details the dialogue for the different parts of your narrative. So in the beginning or at the start of your narrative, let's say that you have this dialogue. Quiet, everyone. I now call to order the meeting, Vivian said. So don't forget that you have to enclose the direct speech or the exact words of the character with open and close quotation marks. And based on the emotion of the character, you have to use the proper punctuation marks. So let's go to the second event, which is the middle of your narrative. Isaac didn't like it, but Dad told him to just deal with it. So details would be, all right, Vivian, so who's president? Isaac asked. Vivian shrugged her shoulders. So in this dialogue, we use the question mark because there's a prompt saying that Isaac has or had asked a question. So Vivian shrugging her shoulders, even if she did not deliver any dialogue, would tell us something that Vivian doesn't know who's going to be president among her collection of stuffed toys. So last event would be this. He realized that it was actually fun playing with his little sister. It was better than fighting with her. So detail would be, I know, she yelled. Star Fox, our puppy, can be president. Next, the stuffed animals go to space. So there it is. You have your events and your details for the beginning, the middle, and the end of your narrative. So you can pause this video anytime so that you can plan for your own narrative paragraph with dialogues. Use the graphic organizer like what you're seeing right now so you can plan for the events and the details. Now that we have planned for events, details, and dialogues of our narrative paragraph, we go to the second step after pre-writing, which is drafting. So in this stage, you write your ideas in sentences and paragraphs, meaning you put them together, and follow your pre-writing plan to write a first draft of your composition. So let's say that we have put together all of the details in the events and meeting of the plushies. It should look like this. Meeting of the plushies. Quiet, everyone. I now call to order the meeting of all the stuffed animals from Vivian's room. Isaac's little sister was at it again. Her toys were spread across the living room. So dialogue shows what characters think and feel. So in this particular dialogue, you can see that Vivian was very much hyped because she's pretending that she has called her stuffed toys to a meeting. So if you would notice in here, we said living room. You can actually change the details of your pre-writing plan as you like. So you don't have to use the pre-writing plan as a setting stone or as, the final say for your draft. So you can change it. You can add some more information or you can take out information that you think would not work for your narrative. Why can't you have your little meeting in your room? Isaac grumbled. Vivian folded her arms and glared at him. Isaac, why don't you try playing with your little sister instead of bugging her? His dad didn't even look up from the paper he was reading. Isaac started to complain but sat down on the floor with a sigh instead. So we should also use words that sound the way people talk to each other in real life, like all right and other such words. So let's continue. All right, Vivian, so who's the president? Isaac asked. Vivian shrugged her shoulders. Well, you can't have a meeting like this without a president. So at this point, you have what you call a split quotation or a split dialogue. So you have the first part of the dialogue in here at the beginning of this particular paragraph, and then Isaac continues his dialogue towards the end of that paragraph. Next, we have to have details that make the story more interesting. So Vivian looked around the room. I know, she yelled. Star Fox can be the president. Their new puppy looked up excitedly at Vivian. So Isaac spent all afternoon playing with his sister. It wasn't the most fun he'd ever had, but it was better than fighting. He even smiled a little when Vivian announced, Next, the stuffed animals go to space. So there you go, meeting of the plushies. So if you have made your pre-writing plan, the events and the details and dialogues are all set, then you can take out your English 2 copybook. Of course, you should know the format. There's a margin at the side and the date inside the margin. Decide on the title or the topic. and then write according to this format. Don't forget that you have to put open and close quotations and proper punctuation marks in your dialogues. And also, here's a tip. There are other words to describe dialogue. You don't just always say, the character said, the character replied, the character told the other character. There are verbs that we can use so that we can describe that a dialogue is happening in our story. Like, for example, exclaimed for strong emotions, wondered if the character is asking a question or is not sure about something, ordered, screamed, whispered, pleaded, sang, and replied. So depending on the mood and the tune, or the, let's say, the overall tone or emotion of your narrative, then the dialogue should be able to fit in. So plan well and make sure that you reveal the characters' personalities through the dialogue, and the plot goes ahead with the dialogues that you have chosen. Let's go to wrap up. Dialogue is the conversation between two or more characters in a story, and the dialogue reveals a character's thoughts and feelings, sounds the way people talk to each other in real life, makes a story more lifelike and interesting, and shows, rather than just tells, what is happening in the story. So these are our references and resources. Be sure to check them out for more information about this topic. And also don't forget that your writing task in your English 2 copybook is to plan for dialogues using the graphic organizer I've presented in this presentation, and also to write the narrative itself in multiple paragraph format. Make sure that your dialogues would have open and close quotations in them and proper punctuation marks. So I will see you in the next video, and be sure to do your tasks.